higher than April 22, finding new subscribers beyond the console ownership base has proven very difficult thus far. Right. I mean, I totally agree with that because there's nothing to entice people to dive into the subscription model and not put games in there that's enticing people to move to those subscription services. I mean, I think Xbox tried to do that with the $1 thing. That was their thing. PlayStation didn't necessarily do that, but they had really good games, I think, in their lineup to where people felt good about doing that. Plus, there were some games that they could play online too. Then he goes on to say it is still stalled. March 2024, non-mobile video game subscription spending was only up 1% versus the April 2023 figures that got me to post this below last year. Yeah. In other words, subscriptions like PS Plus and Xbox Game Pass are not the game-changing business models they were built to be. Yes, there's clearly money to be made from them, but growth would need to be much more significant than what we're currently seeing from them to be the future of the industry that already finds itself on uncertain footing. So I agree with all of this. It's just like the business model, the idea was nice, but it turns out that this business model is not necessarily lucrative because the games are just not there. So anyway, I mean, it's just sad, man. Let's move on to and this is Brap. Shout out to Brap Podcast, by the way. This is the core of what I wanted to talk about, and this kind of touches on what I was talking about before. This is Brad Hildebrand, public relations and communications leader, I guess. Brad Hildebrand says there are two reasons why all of those Bethesda studios closed. Neither of them have anything to do with Bethesda directly: Game Pass and Activision. The biggest paradox with Game Pass is that basically every game that launches on the service badly misses its sales goals. Makes sense though. Why pay full price to buy a game when you can play it for free as part of your subscription? That is accounted for somewhat by attributing portions of revenue to top performing Game Pass games every month. But there are factors working against games, namely the fact that most games don't stay at the top of the chart for more than a month or two, and also that Game Pass growth has stagnated. So games like Hi-Fi Rush, which is incredible, mind you, gets a very small bump in revenue from being the hot Game Pass game of the month for a month. Then it falls off a cliff, then everyone moves into the next thing. Poor Redfall had it even worse since it launched so rough. It never had a chance. I mean, I agree with this. I mean, like, and what he's trying to say is that some of these games, like how they get their revenue is, I guess, performance based, and which games are at the top, and the games at the top get more of a cut. That's what I'm reading. But they don't stay at the top for long, so that cut diminishes over time. They don't really, get their return on investment for being a part of Game Pass that they needed, and so they end up doing poorly because they don't get the visibility, one, and the revenue cut for being at that position because they don't stay there long. Is kind of what I'm reading here. The system was fine for a while when Game Pass was growing like gangbusters. Right, because it was a decent model. This is how I view Game Pass. Game Pass was like the video game store, right? I grew up kind of poor, right? So I didn't buy games, and it's not because I didn't want to buy them. It's because I couldn't afford to buy games. Like I couldn't. I owned, and this is the reason why I don't buy a lot of games now. Is because when I find a game I really like, I just stick to that game. I wasn't interested in playing 50 billion games. I just bought one game that I really liked, like Sonic the Hedgehog. Like everybody liked Sonic the Hedgehog back in the day. I had Sonic 2, and I played it nonstop. I played Sonic over and over and over and over and over again. I had Street Fighter 2 Tournament Edition with Cammy, DJ, T-Hawk, and Fei Long, and I played that over and over and over and over and over again. I played those two games back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And any other game I wanted to play, I just rented it for $2 or $3 at the video store. And I didn't even rent them every weekend. It was like, maybe every other week I would rent them for like $2 or $3 at the video store, playing for a couple nights, send it back. That model was great for when it was for what it was back in the day, but businesses change, things change, and you don't see any video game stores. I mean, you don't see any movie video stores because platforms change. And I know that's not a direct correlation, but things change. And with Game Pass, maybe it was great going, starting out, but now the business has changed, and it's just not a good business model anymore. Especially when you don't put your flagship titles in there. I mean, they have some flagship titles in Game Pass, but they don't have any new flagship titles. But all that wouldn't have mattered 3 or 4 years ago, because back then Xbox was basically a rounding error for Microsoft books. Microsoft is setting the budget for Xbox, which is why they didn't have a problem buying ABK. ABK wasn't a money issue for Microsoft. The division made some money, but more importantly, it didn't cost that much, and other parts of the business easily covered the gap. Basically, Xbox was an extra for Microsoft, which is crazy to think about because games in general, the gaming industry is so huge. Xbox was making a lot of money, but it was a drop in the bucket to Microsoft because Microsoft is such a giant. Then Xbox went on the buying spree and spent a lot of money on Bethesda, orders of magnitude more on Activision. So Xbox was buying. Xbox was buying all of these studios, including Bethesda, and probably asking Microsoft, "Hey, can we buy this? Is it okay with you if we buy this?" And then they asked for Activision, and Big Daddy Microsoft said, "Well, I guess." You know what I'm saying? Now the Eye of Sauron has turned, and Xbox is expected to start making that $70 billion back, or at least cut expenses to the bone and then some while they try. So that's where the whole cutting the fat comes in, or cutting back the development teams, and unfortunately letting people go, which probably goes into cutting labor. That brings us back to Game Pass. So far, the big bets on driving new subscriptions, Redfall, Starfield, haven't spurred near enough growth. And there's not much on the horizon that is likely to restart the momentum. The best bet is COD, but do you really risk the guaranteed sales revenue that franchise brings by putting it on Game Pass day one and potentially lose massive sales? Even if they put COD on Game Pass, we may not see it till 2025 on Game Pass. So, I mean, they got a whole nother year that they have to make up those sales without COD. I don't know what the plans are, but either you put it on Game Pass or lose money, or you don't, and the subscribers revolt. The subscribers revolt because they think that's what they signed up for. That's true. I mean, either they're going to leave Game Pass because they wanted it in there in the first place, or they're going to lose money for it being in Game Pass. If they put COD in Game Pass, those other games in Game Pass are not going to get any money. They're going to suffer. COD will be fine though, as with the other mega studios with huge IPs like Gears and stuff like that, probably. But you're seeing the impact. All those smaller studios making really interesting games are going to fall away. Exactly. Simply because as good as games like Hi-Fi Rush are, they're going to never make enough money to make up that 70 billion hole that Xbox now has to dig itself out of. And to make up 70 billion, it's going to take them years to get back. So their return investment, it's got to be a 10 to 15 year game plan as far as making that back. I just don't know what they're going to do, man. I think a lot of that has to do with the change in leadership too. I think that may have been part of the deal. Like, hey, we bought Activision Blizzard. We're going to change leadership roles to make sure we get this money back. Listen, we watching you. You got to do what you got to do. And these leaders, that are over Xbox probably aren't gamers. Take this developer out. They don't know nothing about the developer, how fun the game was, or nothing. They just like, listen, take this dev, cut them. I'm a little concerned for Xbox. I really am. I grew up with the LAN parties. I grew up with, going over friends' houses and playing certain games, and Halo, a lot of Halo. Written games, and just having a blast for Xbox as a console. They got trouble on the console side and on the software side. They're not making new games. They're trying to pivot, bringing games to other platforms, but they're not making anything to entice people to come to their platform. I'm finding a lot of enjoyment in PlayStation now. And PlayStation has always been an awesome platform, an awesome console. And I hate that, like, a part of me is like, man, I missed out on so much. Because again, I can only afford one console. But yeah, man, it's sad. It's looking sad for Xbox right now. Like, I feel bad for people that are like Xbox, like centric, Xbox and stuff like that. Like, I feel bad for y'all, man. And I don't know how this is going to affect PlayStation either. I think maybe, because you're taking away competition now. I mean, they don't have PlayStation doesn't have any competition, so they don't have a reason to go, out of their way to make all these bangers and stuff like that. Because I mean, they can chill. And for me, as a person that hasn't owned a PlayStation for a long time, like I still got so many games I haven't played. Because I just recently got my PS5, so I got Demon Souls to finish. I need to play God of War Ragnarok. I haven't played any of the Spider-Mans at all. Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rebirth. Like, I'm good. I'm good on games, man. So, and it is what it is. But yeah, like the video if you don't mind. Comment below. Tell me what you think. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.